Good morning, people. Good morning. Boy, it's been some days since I've gotten up early and do a live stream. How you all doing? I hope you're all doing well. Today's Tuesday. Let me look at my watch. Yes, today's Tuesday, February 3, 2026, and the time now is 3:16 a.m. in the morning. Yes, how I always like to, get up, go to bed early, wake up early. Very relaxing. And I'm looking through my window. Hey, good morning, people. Good morning. Yes, I see we have viewers already. It's always good to see that I have some viewers. Peace, love, and power to you all. Yes, it's another day. And I woke up early, and as you know me, I turn on my video. I put on a video. Hey, how you doing? Yes, hello to you too. Let me get my glasses so I can see who wrote me just now. Let's see, I have to put my glasses on. Gwendolyn Chambers. Yes, hello, hello, hello. Yes, hello to you. Hello. Yeah, I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Yes, Gwendolyn. Yeah, I think you're going to enjoy this. Yeah, my mind, I have to say up front, people, that I didn't watch the whole video yet. I'm going to watch it later on. My emotions were getting the best of me. It was, yes, hello from Florida. Very nice. Hello, Florida. Yes, hello, Florida. Very nice. Yes, I hope you can hear me well. Yeah, I was just watching this video on a young girl by the name of Lydia Johnson. And my mind started to think, and you can feel her demise of this person in 1897 in Massachusetts, the infamous Massachusetts. And I bet it's cold there. Okay. Wow. Yeah, it's been cool here. I now live in Rwanda. Rwanda, I live up. It's a high altitude, and the weather's cool. It's probably in the upper 50s, lower 60s degrees Fahrenheit. And yeah, I love these early mornings. I always loved them. Yeah. Well, anyway, I was watching and listening to this video about yes, Rwanda. Yeah, in Central Africa, Central East Africa, about a woman in history. No, actually a girl. She's 13 years old, and I was getting uneasy listening because you can feel. Oh, went down to 22 degrees. Ooh, magic 22 degrees in Florida. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, the world seems to be changing and the temperature and everything. See, the world is crying out. I think that's what happened. The world is crying out, the earth, because it's upset and it's like cramping. And so the weather's cramping also. Yeah, and I felt I was getting cramped. Listen to the story about Lydia Johnson. Uh, again, I have to say up front again, I didn't listen to the whole thing. I had to like kind of like step away a little bit, and I just felt compulsed to do the video because it was triggering memories in me, triggering memories of my growing up in America. I'm from New York City, born and raised in Queens, New York City, and went to college in Manhattan, um, and worked in Manhattan. And just the thoughts that I was experiencing as I was listening to the program, and it was being narrated, and the narration, and in the title of there was disaster ahead, and I could see the same BS about, oh, we'll try a Brooklyn girl. Oh, you're a Brooklyn girl. You're a Brooklyn girl, oh, Gwendolyn? Hey, okay. Hello, Brooklyn. If that's what you're saying. Yeah, I'm a Queens girl. Yeah, it it brings me back mentally, this story about Lydia Johnson and how you can see it building up, and that build up of the story being narrated. And I mean, sometimes when you watch some of these videos that they give it, they build up a scenario and you feel it's going to go whammo, right? But who knows? Because I didn't finish watching it. I'm going to watch it, but my anxiety was getting the best of me. So I'd say that up front. It was getting to the best of me because of my history and the social environment. Evil is what evil does. And some things might be best being left alone, left alone. And how someone could show brilliance. Yeah, what the name? What's the name of the girl? Yeah, well, I go by the name Spirit Journey on my channel, if that's what you mean. Yeah, my name on YouTube is Spirit Journey, like the name of my channel. Yes, life is a journey, and I think the more I'm learning and being exposed to different things, spirituality is who we really are. What's being taught to me now. And learning about people who do the OBE, stands for out of body experience. The out of body experience is the real reality of our true origins, according to some people and researchers. And we are more than just this physical body. And you have people so tied up to the physical world, and that physical world they want to keep by any means necessary. By any means necessary, they want to keep the status quo. That's what I'm getting with this story. But again, I didn't finish reading the whole thing. And many people would say, oh, well, you can't argue about that spirit journey because you didn't listen to the end. But the history of that time in 1897, yeah, slavery ended officially in the United States in 1865, and this was here in 97. And in some societies in the Americas, like Brazil, and parts of other, Latin America, that it ended around 1888. So just 9 years later after the last noted end of slavery in the Americas was just 9 years later after this incident, this time in history, and that's what I want to talk about. And so, again, the social environment. And when you have so-called pseudoscientists, people who felt, they examined everything, these people, but it was based on suppression to keep their wicked thoughts and their preeminence on top and to crush everything that challenged their system. And that's what this video is what I'm pushing against. The status quo to oppress, to hide, to manipulate, to lie, to intimidate, not because you are a true scientist or researcher, but because you're someone who's insecure about your position in life and you want to keep your position justified. You want to keep your world justified of supremacy at the pain and loss of somebody else. So whether you're a so-called Black person, whether you're a so-called female, whether you're so-called undesirable from Europe entering America in the late 1800s. Yeah, the story began, about the time, in 1897. And this was in Boston, Massachusetts. Um, and they had a university. They have a university called MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It's been on TV before, that university, in a movie called Knowing that I saw. Wow, going on 17 years. This should make it 17 years since that movie came out. Yeah. But anyway, MIT is supposed to be, a very top-notch scientific studies school. And, these universities, I went to college also. I have my undergraduate in psychology and my master's in nutrition that I got in New York City. Yeah, I went to the CUNY system. I went to Hunter College where I graduated, and I went to Brooklyn College where I graduated. Yeah, school is tough. School was always hard for me, and I think it was hard because of the underlining um, thoughts of the day or thoughts of those times. I'm a very sensitive person, and I can feel things emotionally, and maybe I felt things too emotionally for my own good. I can feel the propaganda. I felt attitudes of institutions. I watched TV and the biasnesses that television taught us. That what they used to call it the idiot box. Yes, it was an idiot box. It was programs to program you to stupidity. Oh yes. Oh yes. Um, you know, oh, Gwendolyn. So yes, yeah, I'm very sensitive, and so of the day that I can feel in my body the attitudes of these institutions that I was supposed to be, I'm not supposed to be able to speak well because I'm a so-called Black person. Not as smart because I'm a female. Things like that. And they try to get me in one time in a remedial class. And it's not that I needed remedial help. I felt the energy of the people, and that just because of what I am in their eyes, my anxiety and stuff worked against me, and yeah, that's what was happening, and so I couldn't focus on certain subjects. I couldn't focus well with the social sciences like social studies and reading. And I realized now as an adult what was going on. I didn't like social studies because it was showing me about history. And what was the history about? Well, some of the history I knew was about slavery and black people. And oh, you're not supposed to talk well if you're a black person. And so reading was difficult for me. And and we have these teachers, the English teachers are usually white females, and they were just snobs and just condescending. And so I didn't work well in that environment because I felt I was being judged. So this is the kind of the foundation what I was going through even at the age of 13. Yep, yeah, 13 I was in 8th grade. Yeah, I remember I was in, yeah, I turned 18, I mean 13 when I was in the 8th grade, I remember. Oh yeah, oh. Yeah, they had put me in this class that was, yeah, the school I went to in New York City at one point, um, again, they never told you why they did what they did. But they would take people out of other classes, and they created a new class. And I guess like if you had uh, so-called problem kids or your class was overcrowded and wanted to thin it out, whatever. And then they shoved us all in this class. And a lot of those people were black people. They had just a few whites, I think 2 whites, if I can remember, in the class. I remember they had an Italian girl and this Greek guy in the class. That's all I can remember. Oh, and this other guy. I think he might have been from Eastern or Central Europe or something. Yeah, yeah. And when I think about it, it's very traumatic that happened to me there. It was very traumatic because I was in a classroom with friends before I was transferred out. I had friends and we couldn't stop talking. And I think what happened, the white teacher pulled me and the other black girl, but they didn't do the Caucasian looking person and the white girl, but the us two. But again, we were 5 girls, and yeah, and so they did leave one black girl behind in the classroom, but she didn't speak. She never spoke. But they took me and the other girl, and yes, I did talk. I was talking in class, but not more than the other girls who were very loud. It is what happened. Yeah. And I felt punished, even though no one told us why. They just one day, oh, you have to go to this class. And I felt punished. And it was a very frightening class. They had street people, what I call street girls of violence and intimidation. Yeah, I hated that. Yeah, oh, when I think about it, it was very traumatic for me. And even when I think about it now, oh, I'm kind of getting off the subject, but I'm discussing this because it shared the what the social climate was for me in 1970 75 76. Yeah. And yeah, around that time, 75 76. Um, so anyways, um, going back to the story with Lydia, I apologize, I kind of deviated, but I just wanted to share with you what I was going through as a oh wow, that's why I was 13 years old. So I was even thinking that I was 13 as the girl Lydia Johnson in history was 13. I was just thinking of a time that was very traumatic for me, and being relocated. And I knew in spirit that it had to do with race. Yeah, it's a clear distinction how they treated blacks and whites and Asian people. Uh, when I say Asia, I mean the whole collective. Asia, whether it be East Asia, like people who look like people from China or Japan or Korea, or South Asia, like people from India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, like that, okay? Just want to make it clear. So, anyways, yeah, and I went to a very uh, integrated, multinational, multi ethnic junior high school of everything. Yeah, they got kids from the surrounding area, so it was packed with all types of people. But you could see who they put where even back then. If you're a Black American, especially if you're Black from America. I mean, they had Blacks from the Caribbean, all that. Yes, they had that. Um, but especially if you're a Black American, that you're born and raised here, especially you have a Southern background in history. Oh, brother. Yeah, these were the troubled kids. I remember the troubled Black females growing up. They were filled with violence and anger. And at the time, I was so afraid of them because they're very violent, and I was very timid and shy. Um, but anyways, okay. So just for giving, how I felt as a young 13 Black female. So anyways, what happened to Lydia Johnson? Well, Lydia Johnson was a 13-year-old during the time of 1897. And it's just, you do the math, calculate 1865 from 1897, it was some time. And so the girl was born, let's see, just a little bit after the end of slavery. So she wasn't born in slavery. Well, her mother was. Mother would have been a young girl at the time. The mother was about 35. So, anyways, um, the little girl, little Black girl, was, it was just she and her mom, and they live in Boston in a poor area. Um, there were other groups there that in the video I was watching discussed so they could see the social environment of the little Black girl. Okay, she lives in a poor town, and you had poor white people too from Ireland. Yeah, and there's stories about the Irish. Interesting though, back in those days, uh, the Irish weren't liked in America at this time. Now you did have Irish immigrants early on in the 1600s to the Americas, but they weren't as prominent as other ethnic groups, or European groups, entering the Americas to enslave and harm the indigenous people and the African people. And that the Irish also were a targeted group, and they had bad names for Irish people. Any Irish people in the house? Yeah, it's really interesting when you study history. I mean, I'm not a history buff, but when you hear about the things that happen in history and how they pit different ethnic groups together to pit them against each other. So the video in question about the young Black girl Lydia Johnson. Um, Now, yeah, the Irish and Black and former Black slaves, I should say former enslaved Blacks, lived next door to each other. And culturally, some of the music and then dances were exchanged between the two groups because the groups did live close together. And yes, they probably learned from each other. And a lot of the Irish got the dances and things like that, that um, of those of the blacks. But I think there was a cultural exchange when your neighbor and everything, you live close together. I'm just saying. And I do have an Irish background. My ancestor, I have a cousin that did the family tree. My background is in the Caribbean. And surprisingly, the earliest known ancestor were people who um, came to the Caribbean via Cork County, Ireland. This husband and wife came from there all the way to the Caribbean, to the island of Martinique. Yes, Martinique. Really interesting people. When I saw that history, it was very interesting. And yes, also have to add, because people might say, "Oh, why? Oh, how come you only talk about the white part of your family?" Uh, yeah, I would love to know about more details about my African uh, transportation to the Americas. But history blocks that. Yeah, so when with slavery with black people, um, you were denied to know your history. You were denied to know what country you're from. They kept us separate from each other. So let's say a tribe from Nigeria versus a tribe from Gambia, uh, etc. They kept them separate because they didn't want them to be able to communicate with each other. The records of your importing being brought here, they didn't want you to know. It wasn't written down for you to know. Okay. So the only time you really get to know about yourself was everything after slavery. There are a lot of fires, coincidentally. You're going to find when you want to, if you're a black person in the Americas and you want to know your history, or even know who even owned you, who even, I don't want to say own, who oppressed you. A lot of that information is hidden from you, hidden. So you would not know when your ancestors first came to the Americas. That was hidden from you and hidden from you for a purpose to control your thoughts. If they can control your identity, identity is a big thing, people. Identity is everything about a person. Your identity. Who are you? Who defines you? Who defines you, people? About your identity. And if your oppressor has control over every aspect of your life, when you get up, when you go to sleep, what work you do or don't do, coercion in the form of beatings, whippings, lynching, starvation, you are being oppressed to control because they wanted to use your labor for their wealth. So I wish I knew when my first African ancestors came to the Americas. Oh, I would love to know that. I would love to know what countries they came from, what tribes they came from. And yes, they do have things, what they call, what do you call it, the DNA tests. Yes, I had gotten 2 DNA tests done. And yes, I got the family tree DNA company. They did my first and second testing. And then to be all fair, I got my African DNA. There's African DNA. I think the company's called the African DNA or African History. I forget. But that company, they're the only ones there, black company, so-called black company, to do DNA testing, and they do only the what do you call it? Um, the mitochondrial DNA and the Y DNA. They don't do, like, they do the bread, but they don't do the meat. Okay. So family tree DNA, they do the bread and the meat, everything in between, but not the African company DNA. And why? Okay, that'd be interesting. Why they don't do that? That'd be very interesting. But I did do them in all fairness, because they're gonna say, "Oh, you're racist because you only did the white people, the Jewish people's DNA companies." So okay, I did the Black DNA company, and yes, I have a very old mitochondrial DNA, and I'm very proud of it. I'm a L1 DNA. Now, the earliest known humanity that's living on the planet today are the people from South Africa's Khoisan's people. They are the earliest known humans on the planet. All genetics come from them. So even if you're a Chinese person, your genetics come from them. Whether you are the whitest person in Europe, your genetics comes from them, etc., etc. Native American, your genetics comes from them, those Khoisan's people. So their mitochondrial DNA is an L0, such and such and such. Mine is L1. So it's pretty old. And I'm very proud of it, actually. Yeah. So that is what I got done. And I know I'm kind of all over the place, but you know me, those who've been following my videos, I'll go on like this because I don't have a script, and I go from my heart, how I feel, and what leads me to my conversation. My aim of the conversation, and sometimes it's developed in stages. Sometimes I don't know exactly what I'm going to say, but I just say it and just go with the flow. So either way, with this Lydia Johnson, so knowing that background about me and where I'm coming from and my uh, personal history, what happened to me in school, really, feels about this young female. And what happened to Lydia Johnson, and what happened basically to her? Well, I have to find out what was the conclusion about her, but I could just imagine. Okay, she's a 13-year-old black female, not too many years after the end of slavery throughout the Americas. And she lived with her mom. Therefore, the mother is a person that she cleaned rooms in the school building at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And one day, this poor girl, well, see, the mommy didn't want to leave the 13-year-old home alone. Remember the movie Home Alone? The mother didn't want to leave her 13-year-old girl home alone in that neighborhood where she lived of poverty and immigrants. So they mother brought the girl to the school and had the girl stay in a room, in a closet, so that while the mommy cleans the uh, school rooms, the girl, in safety. But one day the girl started snooping around, and she was in a room that taught math, advanced math, and there was a math equation on the, I guess you call it the blackboard. The blackboard is so, I don't know, a lot of people now, they may, the schools now may not use blackboards anymore, but it was a board that it was black in color or blackish in color, and it had a kind of rough surface, a very porous surface, and they used chalk, and they wrote on the board, and they could erase it with this, look almost something like a sponge. And but I don't know what they use now. They might use what they call a ink board, a dry eraser board, or they just might use an overhead projector. Okay, so even technology and how written material is shown has changed over the years. But back in those days, they would use a blackboard and chalk. And so the little girl is looking at the math equation, and this is for graduate students at MIT, a very world renowned science school of excellence. But whether it's a school of excellence, it's still human with its human biases, even though it's about higher education, higher intellect, and higher learning. They were still biased. And again, as I mentioned, Boston had freed blacks, and they had undesirables from Europe, primarily in Ireland. And the Irish were tricked to come to the Americas. And it was a false, what do you call it, a food shortage. Yeah, it turns out the food that what happened to the Irish, that the Britain had hoarded the food, and I guess on top of the so-called drought or the blight, the potato blight, whatever. That was the excuse. But in actuality, there was food available, and the records show that uh, the governing bodies of this area in Ireland, held by the British, um, had hoarded the food to cause this food shortage and force the people through starvation and had them they were forced to move to find food, and thus they came to the United States, and because they wanted extra labor, white labor, and or so-called white labor. They weren't really classified as white, but even though they are European, but they were considered a different race, the Irish. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Okay. And then they later have blacks and Irish people fight each other, you know? And yes, it's the politics. They create enemies. The system creates enemies. And so they create victims, the system. They create animosity between groups to cause fighting because it is used as a smoke screen to hide evil, hide the so-called evil intention of these so-called scientists that run these institutions of higher so-called learning. Well, anyways. So, this little black girl, 13-year-old black girl, had come out of the closet, the physical closet. Don't mean out of the closet how they mean it now in the 21st century, but she was, the mommy had to hide her in the closet while she worked cleaning the rooms at this institution at nighttime. But she came out the closet and was looking on the math problem on the blackboard, and the math equation was incorrect. And the little girl was upset and corrected the error. But someone came in the room and found the little girl, uh, looking at the blackboard, and the person at the time is a question of who she was and why did she do what she did? Because he's like, watching the girl what the girl did, and she was apologetic, and I'm sorry, but I couldn't leave this on the board because it was incorrect and it bothered me. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? And that the equation was left for the students to, the graduate students to figure out by the professor. Sorry, it's a plane coming by. Wait a minute. Sorry, there's a plane. Okay. So, anyways, the girl said why she did it, and they found out where the little girl lived. This professor and came to visit the home. And back in those days in 1897, black and white people, and blacks of so-called intellect, uh, the rich and the poor did not associate. Things were socially segregated and racially segregated. And again, for a white man to go in the neighborhood of this poor woman, of poor blacks and poor white people from Ireland, it was a no-no. But the guy went and knocked on the door and spoke to the mom. And in short, uh, the person wanted to make a deal with the mother. They said, we want to examine, question the girl and find out what she knows and how she was able to know and, blah, 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 blah. The mother, um, the mother basically said, I don't want my little girl to get hurt. Um, See, the mother had enough enough knowledge to know, hey, because in some places it was illegal for blacks to know how to read and write. And it turns out the little girl taught herself how to read and write. And she said that she learned how to read and read based on that words that she did know, and figuring out based on what she knew with words, and I guess the context of what was written, she was able to teach herself how to read. And math came easy to her because she said that she saw math. She saw the symbols in her head. So when she looked on a math equation, see, math is a language. Math, numbers and stuff like that are symbols, and symbols are just like figures of things that represent something else or represents a concept, numbers. And she understood those concepts and imagery when she looked at a math problem, numbers. She understood in her head the relationship of the numbers and everything, because numbers are a language. And so she basically that's what she's telling this so-called scientist or researcher. And they offered the girl an education at the school, but it had to be done in secret. It had to be done in secret because see, uh, MIT was a so-called higher learning institution, and the social laws. There were social laws, even though it's up north. The north had racism and segregation, and the north had slavery. They want you to think only in the south had slavery. No, the whole east coast had slavery. It's just the northern states ended slavery before the South, about 30 years before the South, okay? So actually, Boston, by that time, slavery ended in Boston. What was that around the 18, what was that, 30s to the 90s? So this was, let's see, what was that, about 60 years later? I'm not a math person, but it was about 60 years later, you know? And okay, so it had to be done in secret because the things, segregation and hatred towards black people and European undesirables. They things were set up socially, and of that day they were using pseudosciences to justify discrimination against black people and other social desirables, That was the day. And even women. Women were thought of to be inferior too. So it was a whole concept. Yeah, opportunities. And so you have two things against you. Oh, no, three. You're a child, you're 13 years old, you're black, and you're female. And plus, you're poor. There was stigma for being poor. You're poor, you're undesirable. So, so all these things this little girl had against her, but she told us she wanted to learn. And so the deal was that they'll help her with her education, but it had to be done in secret because the reputation of the school, and they didn't want their reputation to be soiled and go out of business as an institution. And, they had donors from the southern white states, and they didn't want to offend them. See, the love of money, people. See, there's the love of science, and then there's the love of money. And when you choose the love of money, you have zero. Okay? That's just my opinion, just adding in there for flavor. Yeah, if you're a true institution, it's about truth and knowledge. But again, you have humans with their own frailties of self and their self preservation mentality. And so they want to convince you they're about education and higher learning when it's about keeping the status quo. They want to keep the status quo and keep a system of lies going on. But lies eventually come to the surface. And I think 2026, there's going to be a time of revelation that we're going to be revealed the truth, even about the, what you call it, the UFO phenomenon, history phenomena, what happened in history. Remember a year ago this time about the orbs in New Jersey, all throughout the East Coast and globally? What were these orbs and drones? You don't hear anything about it. Yeah, there's going to be a revelation. And all those people that are coming out about what they call the OBE, out of body experiences, and you have the OBEers that are exposing the structure of reality. You have people going on the other side of the veil, the spirit veil, and they are seeing with their own eyes what reality and the universe is really consisted of. Wow. And it's being exposed. You notice that? Yeah, people look into that also. I know I'm all over the place, but it's all important and everything is interconnected. And yes, the OBE researchers, or I should say experiencers, are exposing what reality really is and what is human consciousness, you know? So, either way, so the promise was they'll protect the little girl as best they could and that they would train her in all sorts of math and etc. And these imbeciles, they can't keep their mouth shut. And word got out about this young girl soon after she was being educated. You know that? See that, people like to people make promises to you, these so-called intellectual um, fonts, as I call them. And it's all about themselves, and it's all about their own glory. And a little black girl is being uh, compromised her safety for their advancement. And yeah, word got out. And this person came and I think, what was it, a reporter or something? Someone. And then, yeah, they use coercion. If, we heard about the young girl, black girl, and it's this intellectual fraud that's being done in the school, and it's trickery, and you're saying that she's intelligent and blah blah blah. She's probably a fraud, and she's doing a trick or something. And if you don't expose, you don't let me examine her. If you don't let me examine her and question her myself, I'm going to expose you to the people of the southern states that you are doing this in this institution and you're going to lose money. They're not going to finance you anymore. See, a lot of these scientists were hired to justify segregation that excuse me, that black people are inferior to whites, and uh, so if you show that a female and a black female child of 13 had a brain of intelligence, you're going to be um, targeting the belief system to justify oppression of undesirables. So the board of the school felt its hands were tied and wanted to save its reputation and threat, you know, of not getting financial, being funded. So they said yes. And it was interesting that even though, like, it was an oral exam in part, what is your name and where you from, and how did you learn how to read and write and math? And she would tell him. She'd, oh, you better tell the, he said, you better tell the truth. So using intimidation, you better tell the truth. And she told the truth. How she learned how to read and write, and how she sees numbers, and she understands numbers. And so he would rattle off an equation, a foundational math equation about distance and everything. And then, she did the problem in her head. She worked it on her head. And then he asked more detailed questions. And it's like, it's not enough. It's not enough. So you have so-called researchers, people who want to really, they're there to keep the status quo. They want to keep the status quo against rule, you know? They want to keep that status quo and hold you back. They're not about real education and advancement of humanity. They're about keeping the status quo, to keep the system how it is, unchanged, because they benefit. And they don't benefit by showing that you have black people, black female children of excellence. Even though the little black girl didn't have formal education does not mean that you're intellectually superior. Formal education, but it doesn't breed intelligence. Intelligence has to be already there. These institutions only polish what you already have. It cannot make a diamond. A diamond is. It's already there. It is only faceted to bring out what is already in. And so that's what that little black girl was. But the harm that the videos, how the man allegedly spoke to the little girl, and you could feel that there's going to be a trap. That because see, they also wanted to do physical examinations. And when I think about physical examinations, it kind of triggered me. These physical examinations of these creatures of intellect of that day. You had pseudoscientists, people who would measure. They said intelligence is based on like the shape of your head. It was a science, and you had these so-called scientists from Europe or of European ancestry, and they would measure the shape of your head, your skull, uh, to determine that, to justify if you had a certain shaped head, your profile, that, blacks, they were saying, come from monkeys, things like that, and monkeys aren't intelligent, according to them, and so they wanted to link because someone had a shape of a face of a monkey, that you probably have a mind of a monkey. But you have smart monkeys. And then if you have a profile like from Northern Europe, the Germanic races, excluding the Irish, though. Irish was considered inferior, you know. But either way, they would do this, make up lies, and create a false science to justify oppressing you. Could imagine people, the shape of your head, the shape of your ears, the shape of your mouth. Even women, they justified women. They said women, the term hysterical, that so-and-so is hysterical. Hysterical has to do with the uterus in the female. And they believed that the uterus of a woman was the problem that she faced. And they used to do hysterectomy. You got a problem, you're a woman? Let's take out her uterus. These people were the true savages of humanity. And I'm just listening to this the video about this woman, this young girl, excuse me, young 13-year-old who is a genius and being exploited by this so-called white scientist of intellect. And it started triggering me. It started getting me angry as I listened to what was, you could feel the tension, what was building up in the story. What happened to people during those days? Not just black people, but anybody that the scientists thought being undesirable. If you're a poor person, poor white person, you are undesirable. And that they can do experiments on you. And they were lying, the so-called science of the day said, uh, we don't like you. Oh, they have a thing called eugenics. And at this time, eugenics was becoming more popular. And it was about creating a race of people to promote certain people and demote other people. Yes. So, um, what happened to Lydia Johnson, this young black female of 1897? I had to stop the video because they were then starting to discuss, because he was saying, even though the interviewer of the little black girl, gave the answers. And well, we want to know how you got the answer. So she explained how she saw numbers and explained everything. Oh, it was a trick. They wanted to do physical examination of her. And I had to stop the video. I had to stop the video because it started triggering me. And I started to remember things about myself. Many of you know, I left America. I'm born and raised in America, and I love my country, but I don't love its history of of evil people in power. Evil because of their own fear. And I remember, um, I started to remember, I had a headache one day, and I went to the so-called doctor. I don't like doctors. I don't hold. I used to think doctors were God. We had to revere them like God. Were you taught that? Be respectful to the doctor and that the doctor's superior over you. Well, as I got older, especially now, I'm seeing how stupid doctors are. And it just kind of triggered me. And I had to turn the video off. I couldn't, um, I don't know the conclusions what happened to Lydia Johnson, but type in her name on YouTube and you'll find the video probably. Lydia, Lydia Johnson. Look up her name. Yeah, I'm going to go back to the video, but I was getting triggered. Again, this was in 1897. Poor black family uh, in a poor neighborhood with poor immigrants from Europe on top of it. And then these so-called intellectual white scientists. And what they had a pseudoscience. They were doing examinations. Yeah, I learned in school. Um, I'm sorry, I'm going all over the place, but I do want to talk about what happened to me in school. Some things I learned, something that I heard about it with school and education. But either way, one day I went to the doctors, and I'm a veteran too. Yeah, they hurt the veterans. They don't like the veterans, and I'm from New York City, and if you go to the VA hospital in New York City, I would say 99% of the patients are black men, black people. And I was one of the few black female that went to the VA during the 1990s um, and early 2000s. Yeah. So I'm the only black female utilizing the facility. Yes, they had black people that worked there, tons of black people that worked there, black male and female, but patients. I was probably one of the few black people there. And yeah, especially when I first started going there. Um, and overwhelmingly Black American men, and all the Black men there, needing mental therapy. Okay. Yeah, they make you mental, people. Get out. Get out from her, my people. Yeah, get out from her, my people. Yeah. What happened to me? I'm sorry, I get off the track a little bit. Yeah, the video kind of triggered me, and that's also why I'm doing this video. But what happened to me? Um, I had lived overseas before in the in 1990. I had lived overseas for several years, and I came back to New York to live, and I had a severe headache. I had a trauma that happened to me that lasted that over 6 months, and I had a severe headache as a result. And so I went to the doctors. Right? You're not feeling well, go to the doctors. And I would say, don't go to the VA hospital if you don't have to, Black people. But either way, I went to the doctors because I had a bad headache. And there was nothing physically wrong, not like a growth or something like that, but I had a bad headache. It was at the base of my head where the neck and the head meet up. Severe, severe headache. It wouldn't go away, so I go to the doctors. And this doctor, um, he put electrodes in my head. That's what I'm trying to figure out. And then, get this, people. Get this. He took a long, thin needle and then tried to insert a needle, a metal rod, through the base of my skull. I screamed so loud in pain. I screamed so loud in pain. And I started to cry. And I remember it was a guy, it was a young doctor from India looking person. He said, oh, 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 I'm sorry. And he wouldn't stop. These are the type of savages they have working at the VA hospital. I remember that was in 1993. 1993. This torture, because I had it. Does that make sense to you people? You have a headache. Okay, let me take a metal rod, a thin needle, and try to shove it through your skull in the back where it hurt. My God. My God. God help me. Yeah, I had forgotten that incident. And when I was listening to the video about this young Black 13-year-old um, um, that happened in 1897, here this is 1993. So a little less, okay, 97 years later from Lydia. And then I got triggered, and I remembered this creature of a doctor. You know, they are not scientists. I never found out what was there was nothing, no report or anything like that, or why. And you know what else? This trauma that same year. Yeah, I went to see a therapist first. Yeah, I went to the therapist first because I had gone through a trauma. And let me get this, people. Yeah, I'm going to say it. This is part of my therapy and sharing that the best wisdom is really within inside each one of us. And sometimes it's not about going outside of yourself for wisdom, knowledge, and truth, but go within. So I had gone to this therapist in my neighborhood. Yeah, we had VA hospital in near where I live, walking distance, like a half an hour walk from where I lived. It was in a very challenged black neighborhood. Yeah, probably to service the black people who serve in New York City. You know, it was a big institute, big facility. But it's not the main facility. So, it'll be open, but it's not open 24/7. The one in Brooklyn is open 24/7 for emergencies. Okay. So I made an appointment to talk to this therapist. And look at this, people. Oh, it's a black lady. Oh, is that nice? You get you're in a black neighborhood. And you got a black therapist. Yeah, she was probably the only black, I think she was a psychiatrist. Yeah, I think she was a psychiatrist. Um, and I went, I made the appointment to speak to somebody. And it just so happened to be a black lady. Oh, aren't I lucky? Aren't I lucky? Well, this was a disaster. It's a disaster what happens to black people, black women, and black on black crime. Yeah, I say that. Black on black crime. Let me tell you what happened to me there. Here I was a young woman. By this time I was 30 years old. And poor Lydia Johnson, the young black 13-year-old of 1897, probably the trauma that she went through with those creatures of science back in her day. Oh, well, this was 1993 with me. And I go in to talk to a therapist because I had gone through a trauma and I just wanted to talk to somebody. I didn't know who I was going to see. When I get there, I see a black face. Yeah. She was a very dark skinned black American woman, as fat could be. Yeah, I said it. Yeah, and I saw hatred in her eyes immediately. When I walked in her office, she looked at me like I stole her man. Yes, you heard me right. She looked at me with disgust. Here I'm a fellow black woman. But I'm not as dark as her, and I was very, very thin. And so you get jealousies of some individuals in the black community, black female community, or in the female community as a whole. Yeah, they didn't like me too much in America, women, because I was a tall, slim, caramel colored black American woman of Caribbean ancestry. Yeah, I wasn't liked, and I wasn't liked by her. But yeah, I'm still a member of the black community, and I love my black community. Uh, but yeah, and I even lived in a place, a black island overseas, and that was hell. That was a living hell, and that was part of my problem. And yeah, so I left this place, and then I was just gonna, take a vacation in New York and go back, but I decided not to. And luckily I didn't. But either way, um, so I go in to talk to a so-called professional because I was so upset. Yeah, I was so upset. And I saw the hatred in her eyes. But I wonder what was wrong. So I sit down and she's asked me questions. And she, totally unprofessional, and she was making fun of me. She was saying things to embarrass me, to shame me, And then she was, I remember she was interjecting, well, that she was married to a white man and such and such and such. She was telling me her problems being a black woman married to a white man. Totally inappropriate, and why she was saying this to me. And she treated me like a piece of shit, and I felt even worse. I walked out of there feeling violated mentally. And this was a so-called a psychiatrist. I never told my family what happened. And I was more depressed. And I think that's when I went to the medical doctor because of the headache I was developing. And then he was trying to put a needle through my skull, wondering why I'm screaming. Yeah, these are sick ass people. And you know something? What I see with the VA and so called minorities living in America, whether you are a black professional psychiatrist or whether you're a dark skinned Indian man from India, you are a self hater and you try to destroy other people, other minorities, so called minorities, and you try to destroy them, and you take out your self hatred and you put it on your client, your patient. Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you. So I was triggered by these memories, with the Indian doctor. Yeah, there were other traumas I had with these so-called minority doctors, scientists, who hate themselves and hate their colored or black patients out there. I'm so glad I left America. I'm so glad I left America. It is a sick country with sick scientists. There's pseudoscientists, pseudo doctors that when truth is shine in their face, they don't want to see. And it is going to be the demise of America because they hate itself and that the love of money, the love of science, see, they love science, they love control. See, science is a religion in America. Science is a religion in America, and they want to keep the science going, this false religion, to keep the status quo, to hold groups back. I remember going to school, and my racist Jewish teacher, his name was Mr. Tiger. He was a Jewish man, blonde and blue-eyed, very white skin. And he was my social science or psychology teacher. I forget. I remember we had something, oh, I forget what it was. But we had to learn about these things and about uh, social group. Maybe it was a sociology class. I forget what it was. And I used to like that teacher. And why I called him a Jewish teacher, because that's what he was. And he made a point of telling me that he was Jewish, and that's why I said it. I didn't know what his religion was. Because I told him Merry Christmas. It was the holidays. I was not a religious person. In fact, back then I was an atheist. But in New York, in America, they have what's called Christmas. And it's a very popular holiday. And it's Christmas season, and we get my parents gave me Christmas presents. I gave them presents, but I wasn't religious at all. It was just a holiday. And so one day I had said, "Oh, Merry Christmas." This was he was one of my favorite teachers. And so, "Oh, I'm not Christian. I'm Jewish." I didn't really know what a Jew was either. Yeah, I didn't know about religion, things like that. I wasn't raised in religion. But yeah, I had TV, see, television about Merry Christmas and Santa Claus and all that. But that's as far as it went. That's all that it was. But either way, I remember this teacher that I admired because I thought he was kind to me. Okay, because I was quiet. See, back then they liked black people if you're quiet and pliable, a good behaved black person. Okay, but either way, um, in classroom, we were reading about IQ tests. I remember, I sat up front in the front row, and I remember there was an Asian girl, a yellow Asian girl to my left. Um, the teacher said that black people were inferior to whites and that Asian people are superior to white people. So if you have this belief system, then it's no question why things are happening to the way it is in New York City, where this took place, this conversation. I mean, this uh, discussion in classroom with my Jewish teacher, Ashkenazi Jewish teacher. And when he said that about black people, and I knew I was a black person, yeah, they made, back in those days, you always have to fill out paperwork what your race is. I don't know why, but always fixated about who's white, who's black, who's Asian. Yeah. And I felt shame. This was my teacher who I admired because he was kind to me. Yeah, I was a very shy little girl, very timid and fearful, but the teachers seemed kind to me, meaning that he wasn't mean to me. And a lot of the women teachers, the white female teachers were like grizzly bears. I didn't like any of them. They were nasty. But either way, I shouldn't say things like that, but I'm just saying what they were, and how they treat certain people. And I didn't understand why I felt the way I did. I was afraid of these women in school, these female teachers, because they were witches in heart. Some were better than others, but I didn't like the English teachers. English, yeah, they were usually white females, and they were horrible. But either way, when my uh, Jewish teacher, as he worded it, um, now I thought he was a good man. But when he said that, see that was the thought of the day. This was the pseudoscience that everybody was believing, whether you're Jewish, whether you're white, whether you're Christian, whether you're black. This was the pseudoscience that black people were inferior to white people. And if you felt that way as a teacher, you can't call yourself a teacher because you're not teaching truth. Isn't teachers supposed to be see, I can't even talk straight right now. Wasn't it about teaching what you know? And how would you explain that you have dumb white people too? You have white people who are stupid, and you have white people who are intelligent, and you have black people who are intelligent, and you have black people who are, maybe not as bright. But either way, we're all individuals. But I remember what that teacher said and how pained I was. And always felt the pressure And I didn't have words for it, people. Again, I was in an environment with all different types of people, all different races in school. I was in a school system that had every imaginable race, religion, probably nationality, international people, Americans, all types of people, all types of colors and races and nationalities. Yep. And so people were people to me, and we got along mostly in school. But but back then in school, uh, in in uh, in high school, and especially junior high, the Black Americans were hostile. Many of them, they had extreme violent tendencies in my school, always fighting each other, and I lived in fear through elementary school and junior high school. But by the time of high school, um, I had, I have to also disclose, I had told my father, yeah, I was supposed to go to a black high school, well, I should say predominantly black and West Indian high school. And that's where all the bad kids went to. The violent kids went to. And I wanted to go to this other school that two of my friends were going to. We were very friendly. And so I said in anger and fear and frustration out loud in my parents' house, I said, if I have to go to such and such school, I'm not going to go. I want to go to school where my friends are going. And I said it to my father. Well, I said it out to the universe. I was in the room where my father was. And I think my father took me seriously. Well, me and another family member, sibling, when my father helped us get into that school, evidently. Next thing I know, I'm going to that other school where my friends were. Yeah, see, the other school was ethnically extremely diverse, and it was considered the top school in in that borough where I lived in. I had fun in that school for the first time. I had fun in that school because I had little friends, and it did have black people in that school, black Americans in the school, and some of them were very, very nice to me, but some of them weren't. Yep. And my instincts were right that if I went to that other school, I wouldn't have survived, I think. It was so hostile at the time. Yeah, I'm not going to give the name of the school at this time, but you can figure out in New York. So, what was considered the bad school of Queens? Yeah, I went to Queens. I was in the borough of Queens. What was considered the bad school in Queens? You'll figure it out. And what was considered the good school in Queens? Okay. Yeah, it was fantastic. It had a fantastic campus, I remember. It was a fun school. Um, and I started to grow a little bit, mentally, I wasn't under as much fear. But when my teacher said what he said, I felt devastated. Oh God, can you think straight? And um, and then the Asian girl next to me is embarrassed because the teacher said that Asian people, she knew she was an Asian. And she said, oh, well, I'm just a regular person. I'm not anybody special. I'm just a regular person. Something like that. So could you imagine you're an educator and this is how you feel about certain races or ethnicities? If you're a teacher and you believe just because of IQ tests that you're already going to um, label a child as being inferior or superior to another child. And you notice, there was something else I remember with this video that I was watching regarding Lydia Johnson, a black genius, a black female 13-year-old genius of 1897 in Boston, Massachusetts. Um, yeah, you think those teachers are going to love you? They created schools in New York City. New York is in the Northeast, just like Boston. See, people always try to say that only in Southern white people are bigots. And I say with a big no. Some of the biggest racists are the people up north. See, white people in the South, they know black people, and blacks and whites live close to one another. And but who really is really segregated from black people are is the North, up north. Yeah, people. And so these institutions up north have lies that they want to project and keep the status quo to protect its institution. And so it's really something how things go. And yeah, so yeah, the school in New York City, they segregated black people and Hispanics from the Caribbean, and they kept them in separate classes primarily called remedial classes. The remedial class meaning slow or something. It wasn't that black people were slow. And primarily, they put the black boys in those classrooms. They kept black boys in the remedial classes. But surprisingly, uh, the Asian kids, whether you're from East Asia or South Asia, somehow they all got in the smart people class. And Jewish kids were also in those more advanced classes. And white people, some of the white people were in those classes too. So it's interesting that the people who are charged of the educational system, many in New York City of that day in the 1970s, who controlled the educational system in New York City were Jewish people, Ashkenazi Jews. And yes, you have a lot of white Christian teachers also in this school system, but who controlled the system and the curriculum for people were Jews. And no, this is not an anti Jewish rant. This is just giving you who was in charge, who made the rules, and who controlled the school system in New York City, where I attended, and who the teacher was that said the remark about black people. He said the remark about black people having low IQs to white people. And he also said about the IQs of Asian people being superior to whites. That's all I'm saying. What was a factual statement of what he said, not a factual truth of the science about certain races, but what he said, not what I said. Okay, and some of these teachers uh, were teaching this philosophy that they called science. The IQ tests were considered a science. And these IQ tests are actually social constructs of what they thought people supposed to know. But this was a social construct, an exam that was favored people of certain social system. And if you're not part of that system, you're not going to do as well on their standardized tests. And so blacks scored lower. And also, if you were a black person like myself, you're not supposed to shine. You're not supposed to know all the answers. And so there's a dumbing down in education because, and also if you're a woman, you're not just supposed to be intelligent. If you're a woman, you're supposed to be modest speaking, be shy and quiet and wait your turn. But if you're a white male, you can show off and show that you're intelligent and all these things. These are just things that I was exposed to and what was being nurtured in the child unknowingly, that's what was happening. And that's all. I'm not trying to put down a person because of what their religion is or what their race is. I'm just telling you what was the social structure of the day, my growing up, and what this poor girl named Lydia Johnson, a young black 13-year-old girl who was a math genius, and what she went through in this examination and of this doctor, this scientist who had to give her an exam, and then later on, most likely, a physical examination. And I got triggered, and I had to stop the video and do this video. And so, yeah, you have these people, these scientists, or these teachers that teach your children lies about themselves. The problem why I was put in a remedial social studies class because I didn't want because I knew they're going to talk about subjects and it may and I'm a sensitive soul and I knew what they're going to talk about. They're going to talk about slavery and how black people are slow and then all this and that. When they taught slavery, they taught you as that you were an inferior, not that white people were evil who did those things. See that? White people were never accountable for the evil, what they did. Those white people who were in charge of this slave system, they weren't exposed about what they did as being evil. It was just shared to you this story about slavery to make you feel bad about yourself, to make you feel inferior to white people, and to make you feel that you deserved it, not that they did evil to you. And I think what was happening in America at that time, that with the black female, especially, I'm from New York City, that the black female was taught that she was ugly. She was taught that her black skin was ugly. She was taught that her hair was ugly. She was taught that her lips were ugly. All these things. And a lot of black females are what you call violated. Okay. We were violated in many ways unimaginable. We were violated by our minds were violated and our bodies were violated by people that we might have trusted. And I think when we went to school to air out, so to speak, we did acts of violence to one another. And at the time, I lived in fear and sadness and anxiety. And I now understand as an adult why those little girls, little black girls especially, you have they were usually very dark-skinned black girls, but there were also girls around my skin complexion, but also had acts of violence, but overwhelmingly darker skinned females. And also the girl that was the class bully, I noticed she was also well developed. This girl had extremely large breasts, even though she was very young. So I can just imagine in the black community, a female, young female, um, was a preteen. Oh no, she was actually older. She was left back, I think. Yeah, you have some of these people, girls, who are well developed, And could we all know what was going on, not now that I think about it. She was probably being abused at home, probably abused at home by, you just fill in the blank, maybe violated by a minister, pastor. Yeah, these things happen in the Black community. And it also happens in white community. And it is a world problem. People all over the world, all over America, and with YouTube, people are able to share their stories. You're learning about things that happen in white families and Jewish families and other Black families. People are being abused. People are being harmed. What is happening, people? There is a wake up call. People are slowly waking up. Your evils in history to girls like Lydia Johnson for being an intelligent Black girl who knew math. See, if those doctors were real scientists, they want to promote science, wellness, and truth, and personal excellence to society as a whole. But no, it's about control. Just like you have control with religion, religion is designed to control you. You notice with religion, it controls women, and it says that women are dirty. So, do you ever wonder why women make less money than men? Or if you have a religion that teaches that you are inferior and dirty because you're a woman. Yes, they teach that in religion. Yeah, so why? They blame women for the fall of humanity. Women are the birthers of humanity, so how could women destroy humanity? Okay, just my thought there, people. What else? You have scientists, people who are geniuses, but because let's say you're from the wrong side of the track, you're not supposed to have this ability, and they will crush you. So this is what rules society. See, like evil rules society, and it rules society by a system. And it seems like the human system, it seems to work is religion. Be careful of religion. I mean, have your religion. If it helps you, go for it. But why don't think? Why don't you think, people? Oh, why don't you just examine things? Why don't you just expand your mind? Why don't you examine this true what this world is really made out of, people? Oh, let me sit up. Oh, people, get ready. There is an awakening. Well, there seems to be a commotion outside my window. I wonder what's going on. I'll investigate later. It's a lot of commotion. Wow. Let me. I wonder what's going. I'm gonna take my camera. There's a lot of commotion out there. Let me just get my shoes on. It was going on for a while, but oh, let's see. Let me see what's going on out there. I don't know what's going on. It's a construction site. Okay. Okay. I don't know what's going on there. Sorry, people. I just wanted to find out. It was just getting loud. Let me see what time it is, people. Let me see what time it is. Ooh, I think I need something to eat. Boy, I think I need some sugar, I think. Need some water. I'll get some later on. Yeah, so people, I apologize that I wanted to find out what was going on out there. I don't speak their language, so I don't know what they're talking about, but it was getting loud. What time is it? Let me see what time it is here. Let me see what time it is. Where's my watch? Where is my watch? Oh, there it goes. Oh, it's 5 o'clock. 5:01. Okay. 5:01. Okay. Yes, good morning, people. Yeah, people, I share these things. See, even though, see, there's a trap, there's a mental trap that's happening. And I'm mentioning these things that people in history, you had people who had brilliant minds, and then you had the weird scientists because you didn't fit the narratives. And they used to do experiments on people. Yeah, what they call the MK Ultra, they were taking people and putting them in a sale asylum for really no reason. Yeah, I've been seeing, I know I'm kind of all over the place, but I think they're all related, these stories. It's a puzzle, and they all fit in somehow. There were these signs. They were measuring the heads of people, and they were operating on these people, doing examinations. Remember that black lady? She was called, something else. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's on the tip of my tongue. But she was known as, she had different names, but um, known as different names, but one of them was called the Black Venus. She was a woman from like southern Africa, what's known as, I think actually it was the country of South Africa, what is known as today, but somewhere down in the southern part of Africa. She was a very curvy woman. She was short, had wide hips, and a very curvy backside. And she was an amusement for these sickos. I think this was in the 1700s, at the peak of slavery. And they took her, this man took her, he says, "Oh, I can bring you to Europe or something." And then he brings her there as an oddity. And then he abandons her or sells her. She gets sick. And she was prostituted and died of a venereal disease from these horrible men of Europe. Yeah, and then they put her body parts in a jar, her private part. Could you imagine? Oh my God. And then they put a cast on her. What do you call it? They made a cast of her body. So when she died, they put her in a thing to make a molding of her, and they had it on display and had her body parts in a preserved jar. Evil people. This was the evil that was prominent of the day, these sickles. And yeah, I forget the girl's name, and my apology with not knowing her name. But that woman's body was returned back to the country, and there's a video on YouTube that shows her happy return. Was it 200 plus years later on, back to be decently buried by her people. And what's really interesting, people, what was really like, uh, like she looked one way, but this is many generations later, um, the people of her community look different than her. It's really weird. The people of her community, I better look it up, But some of you may know she was known as the Black Venus. Uh, but I can't remember her name. I think it starts with an S. I forget her name. I'm sorry, madam. Um, but she was repatriated back to, I think, 200 years later to a decent burial. But the people look different than what she. So history, the genetics of the people of her tribe change over time because of these Europeans and other groups that moved in the area. Just saying, but I just found just on a genetic study how populations change over time, but they still loved her, this woman. Yeah, some more peace and power to her, you know, that things in history, horrible things were done to people, and horrible things over time. You remember there was another woman um, of the 1700s. Her name was Phyllis Wheatley. Phyllis Wheatley, she was a young girl at the time. She was kidnapped from West Africa, and they believe from the Senegambia region. And she was kidnapped as a little child, maybe 10 years old or even younger. She survived the horrible transatlantic slave trade. And here you have a lot of Black Americans who are trying to push the narrative that Black people didn't come from Africa that were enslaved in the United States. See how much foolery and self hate that we have towards our own history? Well, this girl survived the trip, and but she was a literary genius. She was taught how to read and write by her oppressor. Yeah, I don't call her master, I say oppressor. She was taught how to read. And back then, it was illegal to teach slaves how to read and write. But he taught the lady there taught her how to read and write because they thought it'd be cute. They were, she lived up north. She was not a slave from the southern states. She was enslaved up north. And so the agricultural system is more demanding. So she was used as a domestic worker in the house. And she wrote poetry. And she was paraded around the social circles of rich white society. I think eventually she did get her freedom, but she did not have a long life. I think she did marry and she died. Yeah, she was a sickly child, and understandably so, because she was kidnapped, human trafficked, and just pretty much there, for exploitation. But yeah, she wrote books. Yes, she did. She wrote books. And the science of the day was that Black people were inferior. See, when you lie and when you are a liar, you need to promote one lie after another to cover that lie. You had science in Africa. You had schools of higher learning, like in Timbuktu, which is in more northern part of Africa. Yeah, you have people in Africa who knows about plants and the science behind, the medicine, plant medicine. You had it. So where do these white Europeans and white Americans, white of the Americas, where do they go for their learning? They go to the original place. They go to Asia and Africa for their science to know truth. And then they take that truth and pretend that they created that science. So people, protect your science, protect who comes in your community, what they're going to do with what you know. Be very careful because it could be used against you. And again, this, I know I'm all over the place. but everything is related. And there's something I was going to talk about else about these trends that are happening now. I think things are being, yeah, things will slowly be revealed. These sciences are going to, things are going to be exposed. Oh, like the MK Ultra, I remember the science that they were um, measuring people's head. They were doing experiments on people's brain while they're awake. Um, and I remember it's called Tartaria. So I think so, Tartaria. This history is coming out, and I think it's all related. They have in American history what they call the orphan trains. The orphan trains, 200,000 over 200,000 children were relocated from the East Coast out west, and they didn't have any papers of documentation. Who were the parents? What are their background? Anything like this. And they're placed in homes. And also at this time, this was happening, I think, in a 70-year period from the eight, early 1800s to the early 1900s. It was about a period of, I think, 70 or 60 years. But this massive migration of little children and these orphanages, there were orphanages that was coming out all over the United States. And not just the United States. There was a phenomenon like that happening in Europe. And I think they said some parts of Asia also. But yeah, definitely in Europe. And what's that country? Australia, too. Australia. These fancy buildings, these large structures, and the children that were being put in them. And where did they come from? And then you have this thing called Tartaria, this section in Eurasia. Allege what they're saying is that there was a mud flood. I mean, you could clearly see that there was some type of catastrophe, and that these ornate buildings that required high science to build, were covered up with this mud. And these mudslides happen all over the world, they said. And they show these photos of this happening. And so there seems to be a connection between the relocation of over 200,000 children with no parents, the mudslide, and this history that was beneath the earth that required such high science. And then the structures that were built on top of these ornate big buildings were inferior quality structures. So how could you have something of high science structured buildings and then on top of it something low? Well, it seems like that there is a history that is being obfuscated, that is being hidden from you, that they didn't want you to know about. What is this sign? What is this history? What history is being covered up worldwide that required that made excuses where these buildings came from? Because they said, oh, these buildings were made thousands and thousands of years ago, but it is believed, though, with the new science, with the new research, with these people who can do the OBE, the out of body experiencers, that they could examine, they have the power to examine what they allege the Hall of Science, the pyramids. They could travel astrally out of their body, and they can view history. They can view the textbooks of the in the higher realms, allegedly, and they are slowly reporting what could have happened or what is happening, and things are getting out there. There is a history that's being hidden from you. Who are those kids? These orphan kids. And they're also called the Cabbage Patch Kids. Are any of you over the age of 40? And did you, when you were a little girl, let's say you were born in 1980 or the early 80s, did you get a Cabbage Patch doll? Yes. I know of little girls that got them. They were a big, big trend in the early 1980s, the Cabbage Patch doll. I didn't know where that term came from. I just thought, oh, isn't that cute? A little, I don't know. I didn't know what it meant. I thought they're just being affectionate, like a little cabbage, because you have people who eat cabbage. Um, but where did these themes come from? Where did the theme come from that babies come from a stalk? That's a bird. It's a type of bird. It's a large white bird. And you have in literature in America, and I think it's also in Europe, that babies are carried in a white cloth with a bird and delivers your baby to you. Am I lying, people? Am I lying? Are you from the Western world? And did you like when you go in a nursery, they might have paintings of a baby coming in a stalk. Remember in the cartoons, they said babies come from a stalk, and they did deliver your baby. Why are they teaching people lies where babies come from? And you know what else? What this hidden history talked about? I couldn't believe it. It's on YouTube. I see that it's getting out there. I hope they're not just lies, but I think it's true in part. Well, they were showing that what was that? That there were incubators, and they had large number of babies put in incubators at exhibitions. Exhibitions like you had, like the circus, were in these circuses and things like them, they had displays of babies in incubators. The photographs show this. And a big thing was made about it. And they also mentioned that you had what is called what do you call it? Eugenics centers right next door, the incubator babies. See, hear that? You had, what do you call it? Eugenics clinics next to these uh, baby incubator centers. Where did these babies come from? Who are the mothers? Why aren't the mothers there next to their baby? People start asking questions. If you have a baby, you have a mother somewhere. And if the mothers are dead, where's the records of all these mothers dying in their medical record? Where are they? Are they? I mean, I can only speculate and just have a wild imagination where these babies come from. Where these babies come from? Why don't they teach in history class that there was a deluge of babies put in incubators and then looking for new parents for them? Where did they come from? Well, one of the videos watching in this study, oh yeah, some of these young people that were from the what they call the orphan trains that were being shipped over. I mean, uh, trained over to the West. I say so many of these people were put in mental institutions, and big ones at that. And it is being theorized that these people came from a trauma, and a trauma somewhere, and they were being moved over to another location so that they won't tell the secrets of of a possible um, massive world catastrophe. But even if that's so, I ask myself, what logic is that? If there are earthquakes, mudslides, hurricanes happening all the time, so why would this catastrophe be different unless it's what caused the catastrophe? That might have been of issue. Was it the DEW machinery? DEW stands for Direct Energy Weapons. Direct Energy Weapons, called DEW, and it is a patented science made from that utilizes microwave. Yes, you have microwave science. And they also have, remember Tesla? Tesla, what was he from? He was born in what was that? I think the 1870s, something like that. And he died in I think the 1940s. And there's a big controversy about him. Now, he was a true scientist, and he wanted to promote free energy to people. He wanted to promote free energy. But he mysteriously dies, and all his work is stolen by people, by so-called scientists. But either way, see, all during this time, there were people who did have true science, and they wanted to use science to help humanity. But you have the industrialists who were, you know what an industrialist is? An industrialist is someone who is a lover of money, and their God is money, and they'll do anything for money. So things like technology, they wanted to exploit to extract as much money from people, such as what do you call it? Like the train, they used oil. Oil was being discovered, coal and oil, was being used for these technologies, and engines to run generators for electricity, and that you monetize it to become filthy rich. Yeah, a lot of these rich people are filthy, in my opinion. Even the billionaires today are filthy, many of them. What they do to get it, this money. And you notice that a lot of them don't seem to use the money for greatness, but for enslavement. And you notice how wimpy they are. Also, people, I want to tell you, study the background of these people, and you're going to see a parallel. You're going to see a parallel. Start examining the history of where these people come from. What is their ethnicity? What is their religion? What nationality are they? And you're going to see common denominators about them. You're going to see that. And you're going to see that in history with these people, that they seem to be the true enemy of humanity, of all races. Yes, you're going to start seeing that. And they're in full swing right now to control you through their technology, your enslavement to that technology. Don't you notice now the technology, we're all glued to our cell phones, our our smart pads and things like that. Don't you notice that? But now they're trying to shift the system. They're shifting. They see they want you glued to the technology, but they're going to be making more technologies of oppression. They want to control your brain. They want to put AI in your head. Watch these crazy people. Watch your children. Don't be flattered that these scientists come in your neighborhood. Don't be flattered when these scientists come to your community and say, oh, you got such a brilliant child. Could we examine your child? Please say no. Say no because some of these kids might be exploited. You hear about it. You hear about kids who are going through what they call a mind control thing, the MK Ultra. They're using brilliant people, and I heard about one who showed signs of high IQ, and they recruit them from elementary school in these so-called first world societies, and they are being used for psychic abilities and exploitation. I'm just letting you know, be careful about these scientists because, like Lydia Johnson, that I started this video about, she was a young 13-year-old black female at the time of 1897 who was a math genius, and she got exploited. And I got triggered because the guy, the so-called scientist that wanted to disprove her, uh, then wanted to do some physical exams upon her, and I got triggered and I had to turn it off and do this video. Okay, I'm just saying I like to be upfront with people why I do it. Yeah, I want to go back and listen to the video regarding what happened. What happened to her, Lydia Johnson of Boston, Massachusetts. So those of you who are braver than me, go out there and go check up on what happened to Lydia Johnson of Boston in 1897. But either way, I think all these things, what is happening with so-called pseudosciences, the IQ tests, how they were selecting people, and not just black people. Black people were not the only victims. They victimize white people too. These true savages out there, they harm everybody because they're wicked people. And but yeah, going back with Tartaria now, like these things in history that are seem to be hidden that's coming to the surface. Allegedly, of these mudslides, they were mudslides. Yes, these were mud that's covering these buildings, but they were very ornate buildings. But yet the structure on top of them was inferior. So, in the time frame that they say that these buildings were made, could not have been made at this. I mean, it's some question. When were these buildings made? You know, uh, where did they get the technology? But it seems like what they're trying to say is that the technologies uh, seem to occur fi- 2,000 to 500 years. There was they claim like a shift in our history, that there were societies before this one, and it was a high science, high math, high architecture. And as you look at the architecture now, just look in your own community, in the big cities. Don't you notice, like I'm from New York City, the very old buildings are very, very, very ornate. They're made of stone, they have beautiful carvings, really beautiful. But the new buildings is made of glass. It's made of glass. No style whatsoever. Just look at it. No style, no true science. And everything you notice is just a right angle, you know. really pointy, sharp edges. That's their mindset. Their mindset is a sharp edge. Yeah. And there's no creativity in them. So it seems to suggest there was a high science in the past and that something traumatic happened in history. And oh yeah, everyone's going to get so these kids that were so, some of these kids, to my understanding, with one of the other videos I saw this week, that some of the like these young people at the time that were taken from these what we call orphanages or these orphanage trains and the Cabbage Patch people. So there was some record like when they became older and grandparents, and the kids were, uh, you know, talking to their grandparents and the elders, and they some of these people started remembering certain things, and they were remembering a trauma, and some of them were getting dreams. And the dreams they were remembering this what was that? A gold something. It was something. These buildings. And these people are living in uh different countries, but they're having the same dream of remembering certain things. And some of these people they took like a blood test to try to find out their background, and at least one of them they were documenting their findings, and they mysteriously were unalived. They were mysteriously unalived. People, there's things going on, and some of these people were somehow getting in contact with each other. People having similar dreams of being at a place. And it's this area called what they call Tartaria, I guess part of what they call Eurasia, where Asia and Europe, like where Russia is, Russia, China area. And they're seeing that allegedly, like you have um, old maps, these old maps, and they were saying that there were these civilizations there, but for whatever reason, they're saying that no civilization there have existed. So why people from diverse locations having similar dreams, and they're drawing the buildings that they saw, and they're identical. Well, you do know with some of these so-called conspiracy theorists that what they have, what they call the MK Ultra, and again, look at the ethnicity of these so-called scientists, and you're going to see a pattern. What background are these people? And some of these people are saying that they're being human trafficked, that they're being human trafficked to different parts of the country and different parts of the world. Did you know that in some places in America, there are underground tunnel systems and possible underground cities? Just food for thought. There are things going on that they don't want people to know about. And I can only theorize and speculate that I think like Hollywood is involved. You notice with these people that you know why they got those. I'm going to say certain things. Start putting the pieces together. Do you notice that a lot of these places that they See, you notice that they have these big homes, what they call mansions. Why, if it's just one or two of you, why you live in a mega-sized mansion? Well, I think Diddy is a clue to it. I think people like Diddy is a clue. They don't need more money, so why do they do these things for money? But it's the things that they're doing. And again, the tunnels allegedly that are there in his home, and the tunnel system. Remember Hugh Hefner? Hugh Hefner's house right next door to his house. And what was he into? What was he into? And who was Hugh Hefner? What was his ethnicity? See, you're going to see the same pattern. And no, I'm not trying to promote bigotry against these people, but you are who you are. Call a spade a spade. Start examining the background of these people. You're going to see a lot of overlapping. Are all people from certain backgrounds are like that? No. And I'm not saying that. I am not saying that. But I'm just saying that those who are, why are they in this background? Why? Look at Jeffrey Epstein. Same type of person. Same type. Into this, Jeanette, did you know that Jeffrey Epstein, in the scandal that came out a couple of years ago, um, didn't you hear about his involvement with that Ivy League school? Did you hear about it? He was involved with that. I'm going to say the name of the Ivy League school because it was public knowledge. It was made public knowledge. Harvard University. Harvard University was involved, or I should say, Epstein was involved with the college. And did you know that also Harvard University was part of the scandal of that pandemic of 2020? Where did they get the virus from? And they sent allegedly two college students, and brought the virus in, I guess, a test to whatever, to China. Okay. So why these higher learning institutions seem to be involved in these questionable activities of science? And with Epstein being involved with, he wanted to start like a eugenics or some type of thing to use his anatomy, his fluids from his anatomy. Okay, I want to be polite, to impregnate girls, young girls, but to have a whole uh, fleet of women to impregnate for some reason. I would have done if it actually was done. See, a lot of times they say, "Oh, what he wanted to do, or what so and so wants to do," but they already did it. But they make it sound like, "Oh, he wanted to do that." Not what he wanted to do. I wouldn't doubt he actually did it. And why with these institutions of higher learning? Hello. This is food for thought. But anyway, though, see, the theme is you have eugenics, you have these tunnels, you have these big parties, and what's being done at these parties, allegedly being done to these poor women. And then the women don't remember what happened, right? A lot of these women and men, but especially the women, don't seem to have a memory of what happened to them. And even little children are being, um, like the Franklin, what do you call it? The Franklin cover up, it's called. The Franklin cover up. That's in Nebraska. And these are all highly documented cases, people. It's not just me babbling. even though it might sound like I'm babbling, but everything I think is interconnected, and that's why I'm sharing it. And you have like the Franklin cover up, they were taking children, sneaking them in. It was like a boys' home, a boys' place. And horrible things were being done to these poor boys. And these poor boys allegedly were being brought over into the White House in America. In America. Yeah. And they had this dude that was a Republican, and yes, he was a black man, and he was a fruity man, allegedly, and involved with these young boys. Horrible. Yeah, it seems the common theme is reproduction, what do you call eugenics, and uh, exploiting one's privates. Okay. And what do they all have in common? What's happening in the world? Why are young children remembering being at a place and they are drawing the things and places that they've been to? And it turns out that these people, they're doing a genetic test to because the people want to know where they come from. And it seems like the genetics of these Cabbage Patch children era come from that place in what they call Tartaria, Russia, China area. And something happened. And this mass migration of over 200,000 children alone in America. The same phenomena was happening in Europe and Australia. And it, it's so massive, but no one knows about it. But now because now we have the internet and people are sharing their information. People are sharing their information to try to understand what's happening to them. Where are people going? People allegedly they're being transported to other locations instantaneously. This would answer a lot of questions how people got from one continent to another. How did all these people get to these countries when you know I mean, yeah, you have ships, but back in the day, 100 something years ago, I mean, things weren't so, but now there's so many. There's so many. And they want you distracted, people. So they want you to worry about the immigrant, the illegal immigration that's happening worldwide. It's all about excuse me. It's all about human trafficking, people. It's all about human trafficking, about humanity. And whether you're a young black 13-year-old girl who is a math genius, oh, remember that movie? Oh, what's that movie that came out a couple years ago about the uh, people who worked in NASA, the rocket place in Florida? They were black women who were math geniuses, right? Who were working on the science behind the rocket ships. See how things are interrelated. They knew they had black people who had high science. Does anybody remember the name of the movie? Does anybody remember the name of the movie that came out about the black women that were secretly being used for the science behind the rockets? But people, just like they want to hide that 13-year-old girl in 1897, and you got look up what happened to her. Yeah, I have to finish watching what happened. I just get so emotional, people, that see, history keeps on repeating itself. These scientists know about geniuses around the world. They're taking their science and their abilities and they're using it to exploit. I remember when I was living in Hawaii and computers were really becoming, that was in 1999. I was at this company in Hawaii and they had a computer and the computers were new. Personal computers were relatively new in businesses. Not all businesses had the computers, but this one got one. And I remember the internet and I was so excited about it. And what was the point about bringing it up? Oh, yeah. And I remember when I had free time at my job and I was on the computer. Yeah, I was the only one that had the computer there. And I was on the internet. And there was a scientist from Africa, West Africa, a black man from West Africa, working for the computer companies of the day. They were geniuses from Black Africa who were helping with the computer technology, but they don't want you to know about them. Genius is all over the world. Genius is not a race of people. Genius is what genius does, and it's all races. But they don't want you to know about them. But slowly, over time, it leaks out about the different sciences. You have the black scientist from, I think he's also from Harvard Law School, this guy. I just know his last name is Gates. Not Professor Gates, the guy that did the thing with genetics, not that one, but his last name is Gates also, another black man, but he studies string theory, and he said that the universe is composed of like a computer. It is identical to the databases of the computer systems that's used today, that they're the same. So he theorized that the world that we live in is a simulation. Yeah. Yeah. So you have these black scientists who are brilliant and they're being underrated or not discussed. But slowly, these black uh, scientists or savants, not savant, but highly intelligent people in a particular field, that is slowly getting out. They even have this young black kid. He's I think 10 years old, and another genius. And he's being interviewed by this Indian guy in America. He's living, I forget his name, but he's a surgeon, he's becoming very popular in American science, medical field. He looks about in his 40s, um, and of Indian ancestry, and he was interviewing the young black boy, having an intellectual conversation with them. So yeah, they slowly want to release it. But I just say, mothers, be careful of these scientists, because some of these scientists exploit the children, and they go high, high, high. You hear about these kids, these geniuses who go into, they're like 10 years old and they're in college, and then they burn out and become nobodies because they're not really groomed. I mean, they're highly functional people, and then they burn out because their childhood isn't developed, and they said, what am I going to do next? And they just burn out. So protect your children, protect them from exploitation. Yeah, that's all I can say about this, people. Yeah, you see that the sky is getting brighter and brighter. So it's after 5 o'clock now. And wow, I didn't know I was going to discuss all these things. But I talked about many things, people. I talked about the young black 13-year-old in from 1897 who was a math genius. And I talked about the Tataria and the underground cities that were covered with mud. There was some type of catastrophe. I talked about the Cabbage Patch babies, the incubator babies, the orphanage kids that were sent to orphanages, or you call the orphan trains, where over 200,000 children over a like a 60 or 70-year period were taken from home with no documentation, no papers of their origins or who their parents were or why, whatever happened to them. What's happening to children today? Is what's happening with the mass migration? Is this a cover up for the really true, what do you call it, human migration or trafficking that's being hidden? Children being taken to alleged underground cities to be exploited is what happened with the Diddy information, Diddy trial. Was that a sneak peek what's happening to young women? Or Jeffrey Epstein, what's happening to young women? What do young women have? Young women have babies. And what could be done to babies? Human trafficked all over the world, under the world, and maybe even off planet. You heard me right. Off planet. Is that what's happening? The disclosure that, like a year ago, regarding the orbs that was seen by thousands of people, or the what they call the those devices, or what do you call it? What do you call them? Those things that can fly in the air, drones, those drones that came out of nowhere a year ago this time of year. Yeah. What is it all about? Is this about the disclosure? Do they want you to believe in some people, little green men? You know, they have uh, um, flight, what do you call, spacecraft. They exist. They exist, people. People of other, we call it, other dimensions and species or races, whatever you want to call them, exist. They all know that. These scientists know that. So what is happening now? Why is humanity falling in America? All this chaos and things happening, and it doesn't make sense. Why all the chaos? Why all these things like what's happening in France of the alleged that the wife, the president's wife in France allegedly is of a different gender? Why is that coming out? Why? Why does the leaders around the world seem to have these obscured heritage? Why is that you can't really find out who are their real parents? How did they get there? How do these people meet? Why are they choosing people, children, to get involved with, allegedly, the meeting at the age of 14 and she's almost 40? Hello, people. So, and who are these people? How do these people get in these positions? How did the president of France get in these high profile positions in banking when they said is not someone of high intelligence, but he was associated with people of power? Yep. It just seems like these things keep repeating itself. The same type of people, if you examine the heritage of these people, the religion of these people, the organizations that they are part of, They just seem to overlap. That's all I'm saying, people. They seem to be overlapping. So, those are my thoughts. People, be careful. I think 2026 is going to be a remarkable year in many ways, but it's also going to be, I think, about revelation, a true revelation of reality. So let me know what you think about my this content, what I'm sharing. Share it with friends and family members. Let me know what you think. What do you have to add to the story? What are your experiences? Do you remember things happening to you when you're a child? Do you have friends that have similar dreams that you, being in locations that you've never been to but seem to have knowledge about? Let me know. Share it. Share it to everyone. Do a video about it. Write it down below. Let us know what's happening in your world. So, this is Spirit Journey. And I thank you all for listening patiently with me. Start asking questions to yourself. Don't just say, oh, well, that person is a bigot or that person's a hater or this or that. Start examining what is really happening, that these are distractions from the real truth of what's going on in reality today. Peace, love, joy, harmony, and prosperity to the listener of my videos. So I have to get my water and hydrate. I don't, I feel kind of little funny. I think my sugar is low. I've been up now for a while, but it's all good, people. Be thinkers, not reactors. And I say that to me too. Okay? Take care, guys and gals. Bye bye.